Of course. So my team are my spirit guides who are around me all the time, and they're constantly communicating with me in a variety of ways. That's always quite funny. Um, but everybody has a team. I haven't hired them. They've always been there.
They're not AI. They're not
They,
AI avatars. Although they could be. They
they
could be
could
little
be.
avatars, right?
They could. Um, but my team are personal to me, your team are personal to you, and everybody that's listening will have their own team of guides. It's not something that only spiritual people have. You
Okay.
could not believe for your entire life if you don't want to, but you will still have spirit guides because that's what every human being has. And it's a team of beings who guide and support you on your journey and try and keep you on track with what your soul wanted you to experience before you incarnated. And we all have more than one, but we have one who I call my master guide. This one guide is with us before birth, after death. They are here when we come into the world, and they are here when we leave the world. And that's the person I tend to communicate with most of all. But I know I've got a team of different energies, and you just have to talk to them. You don't need to know who they are. You don't need to know their names because technically they don't have them, but they can give you a name if that helps. Um, but they are there, and you can just talk to them and ask them. I'd like to know who you are and how I can work with you. So start showing me.
So welcome back to the Passionate Pioneer podcast, series 3. And I'm Beth Taylor, the Passionate Pioneer. And this podcast is your connection to spiritual awakening experiences and, of course, the path to joyful living. And today I'm joined by Melanie Stevens. Hi, Melanie.
Hi, thank you for having me on the show.
You're very welcome. It's a joy. So, for people that don't know you, would you mind giving us a quick introduction before we dive into your story?
Absolutely. So my name is Melanie. I live in the UK and I'm a spiritual teacher. I have 7 courses online helping people to learn how to read tarot cards or oracle cards intuitively. I teach shadow work. I teach people how to navigate through the spiritual awakening, past life healing, energy healing, all that kind of woo-woo stuff.
Yeah, all the woo, right? But
Yeah,
I love the woo, and
so do I.
I think it's becoming more mainstream now, right?
It is. It's becoming normal, dare I say.
Oh,
I know.
finally, right? So let's start at the beginning. I mean, how on earth did you get into this way of life and living?
It's quite funny, really, because a few years ago, this wasn't on my radar at all. I was working as an HR manager in a full-time job, office 9 to 5. Very very far away from the woo-woo, and it was like I got a tap on the shoulder, metaphorically speaking, and someone said, "You need to go and look into Reiki. You need to go and have some readings." And suddenly, I developed this kind of thirst for the spiritual and finding out more about what this life is all about. And I have had that interest in my life, but it's never been anything that pronounced and that extreme's not the right word, but it's always been just a bit of a passing, like, oh, I'm kind of interested in that. And then I'm interested in something else. This was a very strong nudge, much more than just an interest. So I actually began learning Reiki. And through learning Reiki, I had some experiences that left me wanting more. And then I started learning mediumship. I just met somebody and had a reading, and he said, "There's a circle somewhere. Do you want to join?" And I just felt myself saying yes without really thinking about it. So much as I've always made decisions in the past through logic and rationaling and working things out and planning, this path just kind of felt like I just kind of fell onto it. I was being guided, obviously, I know now, but at the time, I just sort of went, "Oh, yeah, I'll do a bit of that." And a few years later, that was it. I gave up my job, I quit my full time job and started doing Reiki initially. And now I'm teaching.
Yeah, that's really funny because you said I met someone. I just happened to meet
I know.
somebody, and but it's true. I mean, that's what we think. Oh, I just happened to meet somebody. But these are the things that fall into the path when you're on the right path. These opportunities, these people, um, you know, they just fall into alignment with with what you're doing, and that's normally it's a good indication, isn't it, of the you're going in the right direction.
Yeah. And I would say the easier it feels and the more random it feels, the less random it is. Because there's
Right.
something going on there that you might not recognize at the time. And then eventually you'll look back and say, oh, if I hadn't gone to that venue on that day and met that person who told me about that shop, and I walked into that shop and met this person, and this series of random events that are, of course, not random, this is where the magic happens. It's all aligned.
Yeah, it's the breadcrumbs, isn't it? Follow the
Yeah.
breadcrumbs
Yeah.
because it all falls into place. And it
Yeah.
might not feel like it at the time when you just put, you just follow the breadcrumbs one step after another. You go into the shop, you meet somebody, then there's a workshop, then you meet some other people, then you decide to dive deeper into this or this. And it's all the breadcrumbs. It's only when you reflect back and you're like, oh, now I see how it
Yeah.
all unfolded,
Yeah.
right?
Without any logical thought or planning, usually you're just drifting into these things. And it
Yeah.
just feels just so comfortable and so effortless. But the more I try and force myself to do something and push to do something, the less it feels aligned. So I don't do that now.
Yeah, that's what most of us do, isn't it? We just keep pushing and pushing and pushing because that's what we've been taught to do and
Yeah.
conditioned to do, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And if it feels like pushing treacle up a hill, it's not right for you.
Right. But that's what we've been taught the opposite.
Yeah. Yeah.
Strive, work harder, work harder, work harder. That's how you get the results. But in fact, it comes from smarter working and aligning yourself with the right things. And less is more.
Yeah.
Less is more.
Yeah.
So you worked in the so you were in the HR department, you said, of a company. So there must have been some reason. There's two. I'm going to ask you two different questions here. One is about there must have been something missing in your life for you to move away from that. And the other thing is, about spirituality, because I know it started before that when you
Yeah.
were younger. So let's do the one question first. Let's look at what was missing and why you had to leave the HR.
Yeah, it was funny because I worked at this charity for 12 years. I was very settled there. I imagined I would retire there. I never thought I'd leave. I followed the path. I got my qualifications. I loved my job. Everything was going really well until it wasn't. And I can't say that there was one catalyst that made me say, oh my God, I hate this. It wasn't that. I just started to feel, it felt more like I had to really push again that effort, push myself to do it. And it felt hard work and it felt draining. And I thought, this isn't how it's meant to feel. I've worked really hard to get into this role and I'm doing all the things I said I wanted to do. Why is it just not feeling easy and effortless and joyful and wonderful? I love my colleagues, I love where I am, but this is just not feeling right anymore. And then when I started to have the energy healing, and of course, with energy healing, you release things that no longer serve you. And that makes certain things then feel quite uncomfortable because you're shedding things that did serve you at one point, but you've outgrown them. But you're not seeing that you've outgrown them. So the energy work starts to make that more apparent and more obvious. And the more I had readings and the more I moved into this more spiritual way of living, I could feel what was out of alignment very, very clearly. And I knew at that point that my career that I had loved was no longer feeding my soul, if you like. It wasn't nurturing me anymore. So it wasn't an instant decision. It took me a long time before I actually decided, okay, I'm going to go. And initially, I was going to just reduce my hours, and then a few months later, I thought, no, I'm going. This is where I need to go, and I need to just trust here and have complete blind faith that this is going to work out. Because I got in my head, what about the bills? What about the mortgage? What about, you took such a long time to get into this position. Why are you going to give it all up? Which I had to process and allow those thoughts to be there because they were all valid, and then let them all go and do it anyway, which I
Mhm.
did. And that was in September 2021. And I've been fully self-employed ever since then. And I didn't go back into that old career. And then when I moved into my role that I do now, everything kind of just felt, effortless. It's not like life is suddenly easy, but it just doesn't feel so much like I'm trying to push a round peg into a square hole, or whatever that saying is. It doesn't feel like I'm trying to force anything. So that was when I knew it wasn't quite right. It felt uncomfortable, and the more I looked into it, the more uncomfortable it started to feel.
Yeah, that sounds familiar, and it's an underlying theme for a lot of the women I speak to. It's not just one thing, it's a catalyst, isn't it, of lots of different things that happen over time. And then, you realize in the end it's not feeding your soul.
Yeah.
And really, how do we explain that to people that wouldn't understand, Melanie? It's not feeding my soul. How would you explain that expression?
I think if you do something, whether it's a job, anything, and it leaves you feeling drained, angry, snappy, frustrated, any of those things, it's not for you anymore. If it leaves you feeling uplifted, even if you're tired, even if you've had a really busy day, but you finish the day feeling good with what you've achieved and not snappy and angry, then that suggests you've done something that's been more fulfilling.
That's
And
the word.
it's feeling fulfilled, and it's something that
Yeah.
lights that fire in your belly as well. I often talk about fire in the belly because I'm an Aries, so I'm all about the fire.
I'm a Leo, so I'm all about the fire as
Yeah.
well.
So if it doesn't light you up, it's not right. And I think what we tend to do is we'll argue that and say, but it always has been. But I've been doing this for such a long time. It doesn't mean it never did fulfill you, but we change and our purpose changes. Our life purpose isn't one thing for the whole life. It changes and evolves. And all the things that you've done in the past have led you to this moment. So we can be grateful for them, but we outgrow them. And then they feel like a tight pair of clothes, I guess, uncomfortable. And that's when it's not nourishing your soul. It's not feeling warm and fuzzy inside.
Yeah, absolutely. But it is going from, okay, so it's not fulfilling. You're in HR, it's not fulfilling. There's things that are not right. And then you decided to, you did follow the breadcrumbs. So you started with one thing and then another thing. But you're now a spiritual teacher. So it is a huge difference. And often when people feel unfulfilled, it's a huge leap to sort of go from here to the end result, which will never be the end result really, because we're always evolving. But tell me, why this journey? Why specifically did you seek out Reiki, for example?
So, Reiki, I think because I've surrounded myself with quite spiritual people, a lot of my friends had Reiki, or they'd heard of it, or they knew somebody that did it. And so that kind of put it on my radar. And again, you don't meet people by accident. We've all this is all aligned. So I went to a spiritualist church because they'd been to one, and they said, come with us. And I said, oh yeah, that sounds right up my street. Let's try that. Um, and I feel like the energy healing was actually a nudge from my team, because Reiki, having learned it myself and become a practitioner, because Reiki helps to move things through the energy field that need to be released, that then gets reflected in your external world. So then you start to release the things that don't feel comfortable. So I do feel like the Reiki in particular was more of an intuitive nudge, because that was what started me to learn how to release and shed the stuff that wasn't serving me. Then I started to actually deliver Reiki sessions, and I thought that was what I was meant to be. I thought, oh, okay, this is what I'm doing now. Then I'm a Reiki practitioner, and I'll do Reiki sessions, and this is what I'm here for. And of course, as you said, the word evolve, our journey evolves from that. And then I started looking into, well, what am I really good at? What do I really enjoy? What have I done in my career that are the best bits of my jobs that I've had? And I love teaching, and I love communicating, and I love the online world, and I love digital and tech. And so I decided to create my first course. And that was when I really felt like, okay, this is part of what I really need to do. Now I'm also channeling. So my guides will give me messages and I'll write blogs at the moment, but I know we're going to be moving that more towards speaking channeling. So again, that journey is continuing to evolve. It started with Reiki because I needed to shed the stuff that was holding me back. So even if you're not going to become a Reiki practitioner, I would definitely recommend energy healing, whichever modality people are drawn to, if they are feeling a bit stuck, because that can help you to realize what it is you need to let go of and what door you need to close. Because as soon as you close one door, another one is waiting to open for you.
Yeah, because with in science, the science does not like empty spaces. It always
No.
fills it. But so if your life is cluttered, you've got to get rid of something,
Yeah,
close a door to make space for something new to come in, and that's just a basic science thing. If you didn't want
exactly.
it to be spiritual for our audience, there was something you mentioned there. My team. Now I know what you mean. Can you explain that, please?
Of course. So my team are my spirit guides who are around me all the time, and they're constantly communicating with me in a variety of ways. That's always quite funny. Um, but everybody has a team. I haven't hired them. They've always been there.
They're not AI. They're not AI avatars. Although they could be. They
They
could be
could
little
be.
avatars, right?
They could. But my team are personal to me, your team are personal to you, and everybody that's listening will have their own team of guides. It's not something that only spiritual people have. You
Okay.
could not believe for your entire life if you don't want to, but you will still have spirit guides because that's what every human being has. And it's a team of beings who guide and support you on your journey and try and keep you on track with what your soul wanted you to experience before you incarnated. And we all have more than one, but we have one who I call my master guide. This one guide is with us before birth, after death. They are here when we come into the world, and they are here when we leave the world. And that's the person I tend to communicate with most of all. But I know I've got a team of different energies, and you just have to talk to them. You don't need to know who they are. You don't need to know their names because technically they don't have them, but they can give you a name if that helps. Um, but they are there, and you can just talk to them and ask them, I'd like to know who you are and how I can work with you. So start showing me, start giving me signs so that I can feel that you're with me and that I know that I'm being guided, because we are every step of the way.
Yeah, they love it when you ask questions, right?
Mm,
Be specific and ask questions, not general, because general is you won't really get an answer, but specific questions. And they do really like to be asked because they like to
yes.
feel useful. They're
Yeah.
like, I'm here, even if you don't know who I am,
It
I'm
must
here
be,
to help you.
yeah. And it must be so exciting for them when
Yeah,
we finally wake up and they're like, yes, she knows we're here. We can actually talk to her now.
yeah. It's funny because one of my main guides is my grandmother, but she was alive in this life. But the moment she stepped over to the other side, because I like to think of it as stepping over, death is just a horrible word. Because it's nice. Well, it's death of one body, but you're going back to
Yeah.
where you were originally from, isn't it? Death of an experience, which this is. But she was my main guide, and in fact, we've lived many, many lives together.
Yeah.
Um,
I love that. I mean, I've asked my guides as well about my family, and I talk to my family quite a lot. I get quite a lot of guidance from them. So you can talk to loved ones, and I do wonder if some of my loved ones are actually part of my team, because some of them in particular are around me a lot, and
right,
others just sort of pop in and say hi.
right.
And I guess it depends on their journey as well. I mean, did they agree, like, I'm going to come and guide you on the earth, and then I'm going to guide you from beyond, because I want to do both. I want to walk with you physically, and then I'm going to keep walking with you. But they can absolutely be part of your team, your
Yeah,
ancestors, because they know you so well. Even if they haven't walked the earth with you, I have a lot of communication from a set of grandparents I've never met physically, but I've met them a lot since I started talking to them.
right. Yeah. Um, And, you know, and the channeling is amazing too, right? So you started blogging. I mean, I've been writing messages, journaling messages from spirit for a long time. I didn't realize it was channeling. It's channeled
Mm.
writing. And then I started to speak some of the messages as well. So I love that you're going to be doing some of that. But yes, I really like it's one part of spiritual awakening. Like once you know that you're not alone, there's no going back after that.
No. You can't unlearn what you've learned, you're not really learning, you're remembering. And this is where I need to remind myself of that, is we knew all of this and a lot more before we incarnated. And the way I like to think of it is that we put the blinkers on, so we can only see what's right in front of us, and we think that's all that exists. When we start to open up spiritually, it's as if they start to dissolve, and suddenly we think, oh my gosh, there's all this stuff happening around me that I didn't know about before. And you can't put the blinkers back on. Why would you?
Right.
You're opening the doors to intuition, to guidance. You're loved, you're supported. You wouldn't put the blinkers back on, because it's a lot worse before you know that you've got this team with you. It's so comforting to know that everything you've ever been through, even your darkest night of the soul, you know, the worst moment that you've ever had, you've never been alone, and you never will be.
It's a scary moment though, isn't it? And I know you said it's comforting, and it is when you get used to it. But when you first start realizing, gosh, you know, I've known this all my life, I've forgotten, and you start remembering things and you start connecting to loved ones on the other side, etc., you know, and you start waking up. It can be really scary, Melanie, right?
Yeah.
What was your experience with that? And also the trusting yourself that it wasn't just your imagination that you're talking to somebody on the other side.
Yeah. And yeah, and it absolutely can be. I don't want to give anyone the illusion that a spiritual awakening is all rainbows and flying unicorns. It's really not. It's usually
No,
horrific. So just to make that very clear.
just to comfort everybody. It's horrific. No, it's
Sorry. It's
right.
very
That's the
much,
end of the podcast. Everyone's tuned out now. That's it.
nobody's going to want to wake up after this. No, they are, honestly. It normally comes from pain, though. You know, the awakening itself normally comes from pain. Otherwise, why
Yeah.
would you start asking those bigger questions like, why am I here? Usually followed with lots of tears. Why am I here? What's the point of all this? I'm fed up. This is rubbish. And it's when you're at that rock bottom, usually, that you're in the darkness, and you're desperate for some light.
Yeah.
So that's when I think you start to wonder, well, what's the purpose of all of this? And if you're doing something that's not fulfilling you, or if you're in an unhappy relationship, or you've got bad friendships or anything like that, and they really feel heavy, it's when you think, no, I'm not happy with what's happening in my life here. I need something else. And at that moment, we can sometimes get that guidance starting to come through, and start to sense that we're not on our own. But it's because we need it at that point. And even then, you know, you start talking to your guides, and you've got a million questions, and the answers don't come fast enough, because you need to be able to listen and quieten down that active mind and hear them. And your mind is going, what about this, but what about that, but that can't be real, and that can't be true. And you've got that kind of annoying voice there that you need to learn to quieten. So it's a bit messy at first, really. They don't just rock up in front of you and sit down and say, hi, I'm your spirit guide, by the way. You're an eternal soul being, and you're here having a temporary illusory experience. They don't do that.
No, they don't.
It's a bit more subtle than that. But
Hi, I just wanted to pop on here just to say thank you so much for being here, watching this video, and supporting my channel. It is my honor to bring you these stories from these incredible women who are passionate about their lives and have alchemized their spiritual awakening journeys from service to self to service to others. If you would like to be part of my Passionista community, just grab a free copy of my workbook, which you'll find a link below. It's called Your Passionista Journey Starts Here. And start making those small changes to your life that you need right now. Thank you again for being here. Love you to subscribe and hit the notification button so that you know when all the new weekly episodes are live. Thanks again, Passionista. Much love and joy. Now let's get back to the interview.
As it's subtle, it takes a bit of time to really trust it and recognize it, because your mind will tell you that no, that didn't really happen, you're going crazy. And you need to learn to quieten down that constant negative voice, because it will sabotage your experience otherwise. And my awakening started when I hit rock bottom, and I had a bit of a breakdown, and just realized I was just completely miserable, just really unhappy. And somebody who I met through work introduced me to a friend of a friend, and the breadcrumb trail again. And I started seeing a spiritual life coach, and she introduced me to lots of modalities and spiritual teachers who helped to start that transformation. And from then on, it did get so much easier, but I did start from the bottom. I did hit rock bottom first. So I guess that doesn't mean everybody's going to have that experience, but if anybody's already there, just so they know, if you're at rock bottom, you can only go up.
You can only go up from there, yeah. Right? Yeah. But you're absolutely right. I mean, and I loved what you said, it's usually from some type of pain or trauma point. And it's because, the universe is screaming at you, or your guides are screaming at you and saying, that's not the way, that's not what you signed up for. No, you're going in the wrong direction. And it's like just a moment where you do hit rock bottom, and you've got to self-evaluate. What do I want? Who am I? Why am I here? Where's 20 years of my life just gone? What do I want for the next 20 years? And you have to start asking all those bigger questions. And that can be really scary, because sometimes, most humans, we're conditioned. We want the lazy way. We don't want to do it. We want somebody else to do it for us. It's why we've got people in charge. It's why we've got bosses and governments and etc. Because we're just sheeple. We just want to be told what to do. And a part of awakening is owning you, isn't it? It's part of your journey is understanding who you are.
Yeah.
Would you agree, Melanie?
Absolutely. And I think a big part of mine has been self-responsibility and accountability for everything that I have ever created in my life, including all the stuff that I didn't like. I've created all of it. I'm a powerful creator being. So if I'm a powerful creator being, I have to accept responsibility for everything I've created and accept the fact that I can change it, because we're creating everything with every thought, with every action. We attract with our energy. So we need to start looking at, what am I attracting? Why am I attracting this kind of energy, this kind of relationship, this kind of pattern? Because I have the power to break and change that. And then it's hard sometimes, because it's easy to feel like a victim, particularly if some really awful things have happened. And we go into this victim mentality, but that's not healthy or useful, because then when you're in that victim energy, you attract more of that stuff. So we have to think, okay, I really need to start prioritizing me and my energy. And again, we're conditioned to think, oh, that's selfish. You've got to look after other people. So we've got to quieten that voice again and say, no, I want people to love me, which means I've got to love me. I want people to respect me, which means I've got to respect me. And I want to make sure I'm only doing the things that I really want to do. So I've got to stop doing the things I don't want to do. And I'm responsible for that. Mm-hmm. And so you start to really build this picture of who you actually are and who you came here to be as a creator being. We are so much more powerful than we've ever been told. And we've been lied to and manipulated a lot. So we need to, start to come back within and ask ourselves, who am I and who am I here to become? And you will get the answers. And it might not be quite where you're at, which is fine, because through realizing something's not quite right, you have the power to change that and make things better for you. And that can start straight away.
Yeah, I love that response with the, if I want people to love me, I've got to love myself. I've got to respect myself. It's the mirror, isn't it?
Yeah,
It reflects as within, so without, and
yeah,
that's exactly what that means. It's your inner self reflects your outer world. And so if you want more love, what do I love myself? If you want more respect, do
exactly.
I respect myself? But it is that, and I love the way you said, yes, we've been treated, what was it? You used the word a lot, manipulated.
Manipulated.
A lot. And
Yeah.
I thought, a lot? No, that's an understatement. It really is because we've really forgotten. Like you said, it's the way of awakening is remembering who we are, and and I love the way that you are explaining it so that it makes it very easy for our audience to understand that because it is a bit traumatic. It can start with trauma and it can be very very long. But also, if you have a bad day, like you're talking about victimhood, it's okay to have a bad day,
Yeah.
but just don't stay there and live in it.
Yeah.
All
Yeah,
right.
absolutely. And I think we've also been programmed to believe that we are victims. We've been taught
Right.
that we're victims of circumstances. Everything that happens outside us happens to us, and it
Yeah.
doesn't. Like you said, it's a mirror. This external reality is a mirror of our internal state. So we have to tend to our internal state for the external reality to mirror back to us what's going on in that internal state.
Yeah.
So, but we've not been told any of this. We've been told the
No.
opposite. We're a victim
Right.
of our circumstances. Things happen to us, and so it puts us down in that lower vibration, and then we're very easy to control, which is why these narratives exist, unfortunately. But we're waking up to that now, and we're
And it's
seeing through that.
egotistical because it's like it's not my fault, it's everybody else's fault. But
Mm,
when you start waking up and you realize you take responsibility for everything that's happened to you, exactly as you said, I'm responsible for the bad things and the good things that
yeah,
happen. I'm responsible for everything because I'm a powerful creator.
yeah. But also not to, this. I hope we have to watch the ego there, because if we say I'm responsible for the bad things, the ego then says, well, I should feel guilty, and then you go into that low vibration. And I've done this. I don't get it right all the time. I've done this, and then I've had to catch myself thinking and think, hang on a minute, I'm trying to move out of victim mentality. Now I'm in guilt. That's just as bad. I'm not. I've had to learn to be grateful for the mistakes I've made, because they've taught me painfully some lessons
Correct.
that I needed to learn. And actually, those lessons I've learned very, very well, because I will not repeat those actions. So I've learned to, instead of beating myself up, say I'm grateful that I had that experience, because it's taught me something, and I'm a better person because of it. So we've got to watch the ego jumping in and beating you up. You just bash it away.
Yeah. Well, listen, we only learn by making mistakes.
Exactly. We do.
People are so afraid to make mistakes. I mean, what is it? Fail fast, fail often. When but the word failure itself is not a failure. It's just something that didn't work the way you expected it to work. So you try again. You can change something and try it again, or try something new. But we're all about this success and failure and good and bad, and you know, and it's not. It's just all experience, isn't it?
Exactly. And I love the word experience, because an experience is neutral. Whereas when we add a label to something, we do put it in the good box or the bad box, and we're trying to separate and divide everything. And we've been taught and programmed and conditioned to divide ourselves against other people. I'm bad at that. They're good at that. That means they're better than me. All of that kind of stuff. Comparisonitis, I think we call it. Um, and again, that's been programmed into us. So we now need to undo that program and see everything as a neutral experience that's taught us something. And yeah, we'll feel reactions to those experiences. Of course we will. That's why we come here. That's why we have the human experience. But I try not to separate things into the good and the bad box now. And I just look at my whole life as an experience that's helped me to evolve. And the rest of my life will continue to do that as I keep growing. And I try and be as neutral as I can, so that I'm not flaring up and reacting to against everything and feeling like I'm fighting the world, because I'm not. I'm just here to be a part of it.
So how do you quiet that inner voice and that inner critic, Melanie? Do you have any specific practices that you follow that helps you connect with yourself and not say good and bad?
Yeah, and I'm not always good at this. I have a very overactive mind. It's very chatty. It's very loud. So I have to put quite a lot of effort into this, which sounds silly because you'd think you'd put less effort into not thinking, but actually not thinking is hard work. Thinking's just it just happens all the time. Trying to stop thinking is really hard. So rather than trying to stop thinking, I'll try and just focus on something. I'm looking out my window now, like I'll watch the birds coming in and feeding in my garden, because I love watching them so much that I notice when I stop watching them that I had a quiet moment. In that moment, my mind wasn't labeling things. It was just noticing and witnessing. So nature for me is fantastic at just naturally quietening the mind without me having to put any effort into it. Because if I sit in front of my computer and try and shut that off, I'll keep thinking of things that I have to do, because that's what my brain wants to do. So nature for me is a really good one. Crystals as well. If you're drawn to them, some people are, some people aren't. But if you're drawn to hold a crystal, maybe hold it in your hand, close your eyes, feel it, feel the weight, feel if it's heavy or light, feel the texture of it, and just tune into the energy of the crystal. And after a while, you should notice that the mind is quietened. Even if it hasn't totally stopped, it just quietens. And we have to build these times into our day, because we are in a world of distraction, and we're constantly being presented with distraction after distraction. So we have to build in that little bit of time. First thing in the morning is good for me. That's when I get my notepad and I let spirit talk to me. But I listen, and they're not as chatty as I am. It's just the odd thing, which is quite nice. So that again creates that gap in the mind, because the internal chatter is incessant otherwise.
Yeah, it's true. Well, it's like anything. You have to train train your mind to
Yeah.
do. Um, and it's the same with meditation. So many people say, "Oh, I can't meditate. My brain's too wired. It's too busy." I said, "Well, that's understandable, but meditation is not sitting down for an hour and not thinking about anything, because that's impossible."
Yeah.
Right, we're not Buddhist monks, but they've trained for years and years, and still, I'm sure they get, things that come into their mind. Oh, I've got to do the shopping. I've got to call my mom. I've got to go and do this. I've got to go and do, it's just non-stop, isn't it? It's
Mm-hmm.
non-stop.
Mm-hmm.
So it is difficult, and I really like that you can just, take that moment to stare out of the window or hold a crystal or focus on a painting, that painting in the background that
Yeah.
you have that we were talking about before we started the podcast is beautiful. You could get lost in that painting.
Yeah. Exactly. And you don't need to do it for an hour either. Just
No.
a few minutes here and there. You're, like you say, you're retraining the mind. So, little and often is great. I can't focus on anything for too long. I have to keep breaking. So I know I can only do that for so long. But anything that really draws you in, whether it's art, whether it's nature, whether it's a piece of music you listen to, something that takes you out of your mind whilst you're doing it, could be dancing, could be washing up, doesn't have to be anything fancy. I mean, I love washing up because I just stop thinking, because I don't have to focus on it. It's just easy. It could be something like that, but something that just enables you to have that little bit of peace in your head for just a few minutes a day. That's all you need to do. And you'll start to notice you can hear your intuition more as well, because your intuition whispers to you, but your mind shouts. And so the more you can stop the mind shouting, you'll hear the guidance of your soul. You'll start to hear things that put you on the right path without the mind jumping in.
And that's a trust word, isn't it?
Yeah.
You've got to trust that those messages coming in are valid and authentic, and they're not just the busy mind or the ego. They are, who said that? You've got to start trusting it, haven't you?
Yeah.
So obviously this journey isn't easy. This spiritual awakening isn't easy, Melanie. And we've already talked about how traumatic it can be at the beginning. So, what was the hardest part for you, do you think, with overcoming anything on your journey? What was the hardest?
I think I think actually the hardest part was the struggle before I hit rock bottom. Because when I hit rock bottom, I knew there was only one way up. And that's when I quit my job. This is years ago, 2009. I quit my job. I didn't know what I was supposed to be doing. Career's always been really important to me, and I didn't feel fulfilled. And I'd moved jobs a couple of times quite quickly. And I thought, no, I'm still not happy. It's not right. I don't fit in. These aren't my people. They're nice people, but they're not, I don't feel like I belong here. I felt awkward. I had social anxiety. I just didn't feel like I found my place in the world. And that was awful. And that lasted quite a few years, actually.
Mm.
When I hit rock bottom and I just quit my job, I couldn't even get out of bed. I didn't want to face the world. I didn't want to do anything. This was in the days when I was still reading newspapers and watching the news. I don't do those things anymore, but I was at the time. So all I was doing was feeding my mind with this negative, terrible stuff.
Hmm.
And then I couldn't face the world anymore. And I didn't feel I belonged. And it was awful. But thankfully, I had that experience because that led me to this life coach who taught me some amazing tools so that I could overcome that negative self talk and start to find where I belonged and where I fitted. And actually, after seeing her, literally within a month or two, I joined the charity that I was working at for 12 years. I've never been in a job that long before because I never felt I fitted anywhere. So I'm grateful for the experience, but it was that decline before I hit rock bottom that was the hardest. Wandering around feeling like, why am I here? I don't fit. Horrible feeling.
That is, isn't it? That really is. But again, it's something you can't explain because they're nice people and you like your job, but something's just not right.
Yeah.
I just don't seem to fit here. And like you said, you moved a few times and it still
Yeah.
felt the same. It was, so it wasn't the company, it wasn't the specific company. It's just not the right role for you, not the right, you're not on purpose.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think when you're trying to find what is my purpose and you keep hitting a block and then you hit another block and then another block, you start to feel really demoralized by that. And you just think, why do you feel like a failure? You feel like I'm just failing here because I haven't found what I'm supposed to be doing. And you put yourself under pressure. And it's when you stop putting yourself under pressure and you just let go. Okay, I haven't found what I'm supposed to be doing. Show me what I'm supposed to be doing. And I'm going to stop pushing it. And then it comes through a series of synchronicities that you couldn't have planned. And that's when you think, aha, this is
Yeah.
what I was meant to be doing all along. But yeah, the lead up to that, it's not very nice. And I had so many phobias. I was having panic attacks. I was really had acute anxiety. And I just didn't like myself very much. It was a tough period of my life, but necessary so that I could find my path.
That's a great question to ask. Thanks for sharing. It's a great question to ask, isn't it, Melanie? To open up and just I surrender. Show me,
Yeah.
right? Just
Yeah.
show me, because you sometimes they can't literally give you the answers, but they can show you the right path. And show you means they can bring people to you. You could have a phone call with the right person. Somebody could mention something to you. Any of those things would be breadcrumbs,
But we
right?
need to be patient with them. I think there's a caviat there. So
Right,
when I say
okay.
show me,
I
they're
was
not going to
just,
rock up like right there and then.
no,
Give them time because it's a human trait, and I have this trait, impatience. I know it
yes.
well. It's a human trait to think, why haven't I been shown yet? I've been waiting 3 hours.
Where are my answers?
So we then need to just let it go. You've put it out there, forget about it, and it will appear
Yes,
somehow.
yeah, yeah. I like that. Thank you for clarifying. So what tools or spiritual practices help you or have helped you in this transformation and this journey?
You, to be honest. So I'm gonna just choose a couple. So tarot and oracle cards for me have been wonderful because they were a way for me to learn how to use my intuition. Now I see symbols and signs in nature, in colors, in words people use, in things I hear on the radio. I get signs all around me in the universe now, but I had to learn using a tool. And so tarot or oracle cards doesn't really matter because I read them intuitively. So I look at the colors, I look at the images, I look at the facial expressions, the animals. Animals have a message. When you see an animal in your path, or even just on TV, they have energy and messages. So I would do readings for myself all the time. I still do, less because I kind of get given the messages in different ways now. But I loved using the cards because they really helped me to, again, silence the mind and tune into the intuition as I just lost myself in a card, and then answers would come up to whatever question I was asking. And I think, oh, wow, that's easy and kind of obvious. Yeah. Why didn't I think of that? And it's because you've got too much mental chatter.
Yeah.
So tarot and oracle cards have been a really, really good tool for me. But reading them intuitively, not memorizing them, which is what I did first. Mistake. I want to use my intuition. I don't want to learn the meanings because then I'm bringing my mind in. I want to not bring my mind in.
So that's why I think oracle cards for me, I've always geared towards oracle cards, and I don't do them all the time, but I do them. I do bring them in with some client sessions because they're necessary for messages, and for myself, right? And I think that you do get more, especially if you're an intuitive reader, a channeler, and you can listen to the messages, and you can get more information, I feel, from the colors and the images on the in the oracle cards. And you can, the tarot seems to be very black and white. It means this, it means this, and the oracle cards tend to be more up to the interpretation or the message that comes in. And the same card could have a different message for different people,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely. Yeah. And I mean, I read any deck at all. It could be a really plain one because the cards just spark my intuition. I'm getting the answers from my guides, from my soul. The cards are a tool to show me what I can't see. But I do like cards with lots of detail, lots of symbols, lots of color, numbers as well. I love numbers, have great meaning for me. So I see a number and I'm drawn to it and I know instantly what the message is. And I've created that kind of intuitive dictionary, as I call it, myself, because that's my intuitive dictionary. And other people might say, well, that number means something different for me. And that's fine. None of us are right or wrong. We all interpret things according to what works for us. And our spirit guides will then communicate with us according to what they know works for us as well. But yes, they're a wonderful tool. And there are so many beautiful decks out there now that have got so many different styles and designs that you can really go out and find something that feels like it's speaking to you. And you'll know because it would like jump off the shelf into your hand.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned numerology and numbers because I noticed as my spiritual journey evolved, the more and more I would see numbers. It was a way that they communicate, that my team communicate with me. 23, 23, 22, 22, 1, 1, 1, 1, and a simple eight. I don't know, any combination of number, but again, they mean something to me.
Yeah.
But I do see more and more of them. And sometimes I just tend to look at my phone. I'm like, oh, it's 22, 22 again. Right. Same message. I guess
Yeah.
I didn't listen the first time.
And that's really interesting because a lot of people, even the non-spiritual people, I know many people who are not on this path, but they are seeing the repeated numbers. And so I've said to them, you're getting on this path. We're all waking up at different stages, but we're all going through this. This is a global awakening. It's a global shift. But yeah, when you're used to certain numbers meaning certain things, then it's very interesting because my guides know how to get that message to me. So when I see the threes, for example, 333 or 3333, I'm working too hard and I need to go and have a break and have some fun and take up a creative hobby or call one of my friends. That's what that number means to me. It's very specific to me.
Right.
So they show me that when I'm overworking, and it always makes me smile because it's as if someone has tapped me on the shoulder and said, "You need to stop that now. You're not in balance. Go and have some fun. You've done too much of that."
Right.
So I love it. It makes me smile every time I see these messages.
I'm just going to finish with I mean that's another great response. I just want to finish with some some information about your, the spiritual journey and how it's affected your relationships and your overall well-being. What does a joyful life look like for you today compared to before?
The spiritual path has massively, massively improved my well-being and my ability to feel peaceful and feel joyful, because I know how to do that now. I didn't know how to do it before I started on this path. Not really. I looked for superficial things to bring joy. Now
Mm.
I know I don't need anything to feel joy. That joy lives within me. It's permanently residing there. I just need to tap into it. And there are certain things that help me tap into it, like nature, like my dog, like my husband, my friends. I've got lots of triggers for that joy. But having walking this spiritual path, I know how to feel good. I know how to take care of myself. I know how important it is. I know that the external reality is a mirror. So if things are going wrong for me, I need to do some inner work. I didn't have any of that knowledge before I started on this path. I would force against it and argue with the world. So the spiritual path has brought me joy through the knowledge, I would say, that I have, and the wisdom that I've gained through walking this path and through my guides.
Right, that's a lovely answer. Yeah. Um, and I love the fact that you identify and joy is just it's a natural thing for you, because many women cannot answer that question. Not the women on my podcast, but if you ask women in general, um, what is joy for you? They can't answer it.
Yeah.
Or we look at joy as a reward for the work we've done, right? And that's not joy at
No.
all. You've got to incorporate joy moments for you in your life every day. And, and if you are in an unfulfilling work, job, whatever it is, move it. Doesn't have to be. You don't have to be a business owner. You don't have to quit your job. You could move sideways. You could go into another type of work that what's interesting for you, follow the joy,
Yeah.
right?
And joy isn't something external that we need to get, it is internal.
Right.
When I learned that, I thought, oh, wow, is it really? That means I can access it at any moment. And, I know it sounds crazy, but I didn't realize that before. I always thought it was something we had to go and get. We had to change our external circumstances to find joy. You don't need to find it. You need to strip away the stuff that's blocking it.
Correct. Correct. So let's see. So I've got one final question before we finish. And that's how do you think? So imagine the planet at the moment. So people are waking up
Yeah.
and we are moving away from service to self. And you mentioned the word selfish before, me, myself, and I, which is misconstrued because we know selfish means take care of yourself first. But we are moving away from the service to self and into service to others. And how, in your experience, how is that contributing to the collective consciousness on the planet with everybody waking up?
So I always sort of say the single thing that you can do to affect the collective is to work on your own energy field. And if you do something that lights you up, that ripples out into the universe. So the more we do something joyful, and this, yeah, being of service to others is joyful as long as it's not to the detriment to yourself. Being of service doesn't mean, you don't get fed, but everybody else does. Everybody is connected. So by looking after other people, you're looking after yourself. It feels good to help other people as long as we're fulfilled as well. And then it puts you in a different vibration. So your vibration moves into gratitude or joy or helping other people. It brings you into your heart. By doing that, the energy of each individual person is connected to all of the people on the planet. So the more people that can live in that space of joy and make decisions from the heart and not from the ego, the more that affects and ripples out onto the planet. And from what I've been told, the perspective from spirit is that the planet is kind of lighting up more and more each day as all these people start to awaken. It's like there's this this light is coming in more and more, but we can't see it from down here from our perspective. So
it's too dense, isn't it? 3D, it's too dense.
Yeah, exactly. So we need to trust, again, that word, that when we do something wonderful for our community, for our loved ones, for our neighbor, for our friend, given a compliment, doesn't have to be anything massive. It makes somebody else smile, that makes us smile. That ripple effect goes out, that person goes and makes somebody else smile. It's all of these things. We're all connected. We're not separate individual people. But again, that's the programming we've been given. So we need to remember every thought, every action, every behavior shifts and raises our vibration, which affects the collective vibration of humanity as a whole.
Nice. Yeah, we didn't even talk about vibration. There's so many things we could have talked about. And there's just, we could have been here for 4 hours, really, Melanie, right? So I've got 2 questions I ask all my guests. If you could go back in time, what advice would you give to your younger self?
I would let my younger self know that she is enough and to stop comparing herself to other people. She's not broken. She's perfect just as she is.
That's a lovely answer. And what do you hope your story will inspire in other women who are looking to live a more purposeful and joyful spiritual life?
I hope that I can inspire people to listen to their intuition, because I can guide people. We can all guide people, but the best guidance comes from within you as an individual. And I would love people to remember that and to trust their gut and to trust those little intuitive nudges they get and feel inspired to follow that breadcrumb trail, even if it means something needs to go. You'll know in your heart if you've outgrown something. And I would love people to take that leap of faith into the unknown and trust their intuition will lead them in the right direction.
Lovely. Yeah. Do you have a message, a final message? Because I know you do oracle cards, you do intuitive messages. While we've been talking, is there any message that would like to come through for our audience today? Anything?
So I think we need to remember that like you were saying, the 3D earth is quite dense. So we can forget that we're spiritual beings having a human experience. We can get really stuck in the day-to-day, the grind. I've got to earn money, I've got to put food on the table, I've got all this stuff going on. And if we can just occasionally look up and remember that there's a whole world out there of spirit that we can't always perceive, but it's always there. And try and, I look up at the stars when I go outside at night, and the mind stops, and I just think, wow, there's so much more, isn't there, than just my house and my life and the things that I've done today. Look at how vast it is and how expansive it is. And remember that is within us as well. We might have this physical body that feels very dense and solid, but our energy is huge. We are expansive beings as well. And I want people to remember that and remind themselves of that as often as possible when they get stuck in the day-to-day. You are a powerful creator being and we're in a vast universe. There is a lot more going on than this tiny little bit we can see.
Wow. Beautiful. Beautiful message. A million thanks to Melanie for joining us today. And thanks to our audience, of course, for hanging out with us. And we hope you found it inspiring and empowering. And you'll find all you need to know about both of us in the show notes below. So until next time, this is the Passionate Pioneer and Melanie signing off. Wow, another powerful Passionista conversation. I hope that this guest's journey, experience, and story has inspired something deep within you. Remember, it's about following the joy moments in your life. It's a beautiful dance with the universe. If you would like to dive deeper into your joy journey with me, you will find all the links below this video, including a link to a free workbook that will help you to start your joy journey. And until next time, Passionista, I'll say goodbye. Much love and joy.